I laugh when I hear fake outrage from folks screaming how football's soft now. I hate what the game has become. You can't hit nobody anymore. Because I saw one of the most traumatizing things of my life at the age of 14 playing this game, this sport that we all love called football. And I remember when I was playing ball in middle school, I had this coach used to always joke about the amount of padding that we have in helmets now. He used to always say, man, back in my days when we played, we didn't have all these pillows in our helmets. We had a little string around the helmet with maybe one or two things of padding, and we called them things headache boxes. Yeah, congratulations for being a gladiator and playing through concussions and effing up your long-term health. But I will never forget the day, my freshman year of high school, the first day we got pads. You know, you go through June, the first few weeks of the summer, doing all those gashes on the track, asking yourself, are we training to play football or are we training for the Olympics? Because that's what it feels like. So when you finally get that helmet, you finally get those pads, you're ready to go out there and you're ready to go hit somebody. So first day, right? We have practice early in the morning. You better be at that locker room at 5 a.m. and you better be on that practice field at 5:25, even though practice started at 4:30, but you better be there 5 minutes early, because if you wasn't early, you was late. So we go through the warm-ups, you know, we doing our jumping jacks, you feel we getting hyped up for practice, and then 6 o'clock, we out there doing Oklahomas. Yes, we were out there doing Oklahomas at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 a.m., we out there smacking. You hear them pads thudding and thumping. Yeah, early in the morning. This is how we starting our days off. Knocking our heads off each other's, right? So we do 3 different drills. The first one, we did the traditional Oklahomas. That's when everybody lines up. The coach blows the whistle. You're either trying to run somebody over or somebody's trying to give you that Madden 06 Ray Lewis hit stick, right? And then after we did this first drill of Oklahomas, we did another version of it called hamburgers. Now, if you never did hamburgers, what hamburgers is it's like your traditional Oklahomas, but instead, you got to lie down on your back. And the coach is going to blow the whistle 2 times. The first time he blows the whistle, you can't get up. It's just to kind of test you, because it kind of prepares you for when you're in an actual game, not jumping off sides when the quarterback does a false count. So if you jump by the false whistle, you feel me, then you end up having to do some punishment after practice. So the coach blows the whistle the first time, that's just to get you ready. You're still laying on your back. The second time the coach blows the whistle, you better have your ass up and fast, because if not, if you can't get up quick enough and the other man out leverages you, it's going to be very painful, and you're going to get put on somebody's practice highlights. So after we get done doing this, we do one more drill when they have the little mats lined out, and it's essentially like a blocking drill, but you're not really blocking. You're pretty much trying to pancake the other dude that you're lining up against, essentially. So after we get done doing all this, it's 7:30 a.m., we get a 5-minute break, and then we go to our individuals. That's when everybody goes to their set stations. If you are a wide receiver, you are working out with the wide receivers coach. If you are a corner, you go to the DB's coach. Offensive line, defensive line, they do their own thing. And then after you get done with individuals, that's when you come together and you do your team activities. That's when you really get it in. That's when you get the one-on-ones with offensive line versus defensive line, wide receivers versus DBs. And I'll never forget how hyped up me and my dogs were. We are only 14 years old. This is fall camp. This is the first day of pads. By this time, it's like 8 or 9 o'clock. The sun's beaming. It's hot as hell because we're playing high school football in Florida. So we do one-on-ones, right? First couple of guys go, then my homeboy goes, right? He's telling me before it's his turn how he was finna do the Antonio Brown step back move, how he was finna kind of cross him over and whatnot. And my homie that's telling me this, he's pretty lengthy. He's like 6'2", 185 pounds. So he was bigger than your normal 14-year-old high school freshman football player. And the DB he was going up against was a sophomore who had started all of last year playing cornerback on JV. So it was expected to be a pretty good matchup. And I'll never forget this moment. So he ends up getting told by coach to do a fade route, right? So you know he gets jammed off the line, he beats the press, and then he ends up positioning himself to go up and make a play on the ball. And as soon as he comes up with the ball, he comes right back down, and all you hear is like you just hear something crack. And one of the most horrifying sounds to ever hear is a man screaming in agony because his bones are protruding out of a place of his body that they have no business coming out of. I never learned more about the human anatomy than I did in this lone moment. So after we hear we look down and he's screaming to the top of his lungs, "Coach! Coach!" And you look down at his right knee, his kneecap is on the other side of his leg. Not only was it completely out of the socket, but it was like on the other side of his leg. And everybody's just like, damn, you had a few people that started breaking down, crying. And I'm just trying to contextualize all of this because football happens so fast that it's hard to process certain things. And this is like my first real injury that I've ever seen a teammate that I played with have. I've never seen an injury this gruesome, this horrifying to look at than I did watching my homie have a dislocated kneecap and also tearing his ACL in the process. And we have to wait 15 minutes for the ambulance to come there and stretcher him out. They come on the track, they stretcher him on, and then he's gone on to the emergency room. And at that point, with me being the freshman, I'm thinking that practice is over. Because my homie just had his kneecap come all the way out the socket. It's on the other side of his leg and tore his ACL at the same time. There's no possible way coach could even be thinking about resuming practice, right? Nah, so after my homie gets carted off on the ambulance, coach gets us all together, right? And he starts giving us this 2-minute lecture about how football is a violent sport. Injuries are going to happen. That's just the nature of the game. And even if you're not injured, there's never a game that you play in past the first month of the season where you're truly fully healthy. You're going to get banged up. You're going to be playing through all kinds of sore and aching bones and muscles. And my high school coach, his biggest thing was he wanted you to be strong for the fourth quarter. If you were hurt, don't let the other team know you were hurt. It was all about endurance, not just physically, but mentally. And after he ended up giving us this speech, practice resumes 2 minutes later. And I'll never forget this day. And that's why I always laugh when I hear folks with this fake outrage about how football has become soft because of all the rules, the regulations that they have in the NFL on two-a-day practices, how physical you can be before a training camp. Because if you ever put those pads on at any level, you know that when you get on that field, there's a chance that could be your final moments of life. You could die playing this sport. So it doesn't matter how watered down football may be right now because of all of the penalties. You can't hit nobody like how you used to. You want to know how football got to this point? Because of lawsuits. Those same people, like my middle school coach who was bragging about not having a lot of padding in the helmet, playing with headache boxes, they were the same people who were suing the NFL, costing them billions in court for concussion, CTE lawsuits. That's why the NFL takes player safety and player health so seriously. Just because football is a violent sport and this is a contact sport doesn't mean that you can't make the game safer. Everybody knows the risk that you take when you step on that field. But that doesn't mean that the NFL shouldn't make it safer. It's easy to complain about how soft the game is when you're not out there getting fucked up, getting thrown around, getting into a car accident for 60 minutes, because that's what playing football is like. Tom Brady explained it perfectly. When you play football, you're getting into a car accident every single play. So it's easy to shout that football's soft when you're laying down on your back in the bed, when you're not out there and you're not putting your body on the line like how these players do. Yeah, you can say that they get overpaid. I say sometimes they get fairly compensated. If you want to know just how gruesome it is playing football at the NFL level, I advise you to go watch one of the NFL Netflix docuseries where they followed the receivers all throughout last season and the year before that when they followed the quarterbacks. Amon-Ra St. Brown played through the entirety of last season with a torn oblique off the bone. I don't know how the hell he was able to do that, but to say that football is soft, I think that you're severely underestimating just how gruesome playing this sport is. And either you never strapped on those pads before to be able to understand the pain, or you're just voicing fake outrage for likes and attention on social media. Because no matter how much they change the rules, as long as you can still go out there and tackle somebody, football will never be soft. And that day, at 14 years old, seeing my homie's leg bent at an angle that it never should have been, with his kneecap on the side of his leg and a torn ACL, it made me have a different perspective on this sport. It made me have a different respect for everybody that steps up on that field. Because no matter what, there's a chance that you may not make it home after the game. I've seen some really gruesome injuries in my life, but I've never seen something as nightmarish and horrific as what I seen that day, first day of pads. And it made me ask myself, JT, is this really what you want to do? Are you really cut out to sustain the level of punishment playing this sport? Do you really love football that much? And I ask myself those questions. Going home, icing up, because that day, that's one of those things that somebody my age should never have to witness. So when people say that football is soft, I just laugh at them. Because that day replays in my head all the time. My teammate, my homie is screaming, "Coach," crying. Some coaches just looking away. You got some players crying at the severity of the injury. Now, he eventually ended up playing. After a year and a half, he transferred elsewhere, but he was never the same player after that. Football isn't soft. You got to be one of the toughest SOBs on the planet to play this sport at the level that they play it in the NFL, where everything's sped up, everything's going a million miles per hour. So think twice before you call this game soft. Because after this story, I might have convinced you to never want to play football if you ever thought about it. Because there's a chance that you could have a play happen to you that changes not just your career, but your life forever.